Okay, so now we're on to the forebrain. So as you can see, there's a lot of different parts of the forebrain, so this might be a little bit of a long lecture here, but we'll see what we can do. Maybe we might have to cut it into two parts. We'll just see how it goes. Okay, so I'm not going to spend time to allow you to copy each one of these terms because they're going to be on each slide. I'm just preparing you for these. This is what we're going to be going over on for the forebrain. All of these parts are considered the forebrain. Okay, so the first part we're going to go over is the thalamus. And the thalamus is this area right in here. So what happens is we had just gone over the reticular formation, and we had talked about that the cortex over here, it kind of primes the reticular formation of what to look for. So whatever you think about on a regular basis, then what the reticular formation will allow to come through will be, what the cortex primes for it, what it says to look for. So we tend to see what we want to see. Now, where the information progresses to is it goes to the thalamus here. So it comes up here and it goes here. And what this is like the sorter. So it will send some information here, some here, some here, some here. So all information comes up through the reticular formation, and then what the thalamus does is it sends it to the different parts of the brain to process it further. So I had a student, and he actually drew this picture while he was in class one day. I thought he was a great artist. You can think of it as a switchboard operator, but that's kind of like really old school, so probably a lot of you don't even know what a switchboard is. But when I was younger, there was a Bugs Bunny cartoon, and you saw the inside of a person's head, and you saw the information go up the spinal cord. It was like, and then it went in, and there was like a little man in the head, and the little man would say, "Hold on, let me connect you, hold on, let me connect you," and then it would put the information where it went. But another way that you could think about it besides the switchboard operator is the mailman, is all the information goes into the post office, and then the post office sends out sends the letters to where they're supposed to go. So there's one sense that it doesn't control, and that is the sense of smell. Now there's a couple things. First of all, let's go back to this slide. Whoops, sorry. As you can see, it comes up here. So some information we're going to find out goes directly to the amygdala. So sometimes when you get this feeling where it's just kind of out of the, it's like that gut feeling, the information goes up here, and then over here it's going to go to the amygdala first. The amygdala gets it slightly ahead of the time, that the higher cortex gets it. So sometimes, I always ask students, I say, should you trust your gut or not? And, that's a big debate, as we found all kinds of different research. Sometimes we should trust it, and sometimes we shouldn't, because it seems like if we have a fear or if we have prior experience with something, then the amygdala, we're going to find out the amygdala, we haven't got to that part yet, the amygdala and the hippocampus, they start to, they get the information slightly ahead of the cortex, and so they'll make snap judgments that might not be right. So for example, I always go into this, I say, whose trip is it when someone walks into the room and you just hate them? Maybe you've experienced that before. I think a lot of you might know the research that says that on a job interview, you have 2 minutes, and they've already decided, are you a possible candidate, are you not a possible candidate? So we have a tendency to make snap judgments just by looking at someone, and those judgments aren't always right. But what happens is the information comes up to the amygdala, and this is probably what's going on, like if you make this snap judgment that you just don't like someone, is that the information comes up this reticular formation, then it goes to the amygdala first, which we'll get to the amygdala, that's your emotional center of the brain. The emotional center of the brain processes it and says, hey, have we had experience with someone like this before? Are they friend or are they foe? And if they look like somebody in your past that you've had like really negative experiences with, then simultaneously while the information's going up to the cortex, the amygdala is triggering So then what happens is the cortex already got the information from the amygdala saying, hey, we've had experience with this type of person before, so look for all the bad things because you shouldn't like them because we've had that negative thing before. So again, a lot of times we make decisions that are based on our past experience. So and sometimes when we immediately, like some of you may have experienced this, that you keep falling for the same type of person again and again and again, and it's like even before you had knowledge about what they were like, you just kind of got those good feelings from them. And what I would guess is I would guess that you've had positive experience with someone like that before, that you can't maybe even remember. We're going to get to that. Like, why do psychologists say that women will tend to marry their fathers and men will tend to marry their mothers? So we'll get to that, kind of, because I have to bring in all the different things, the amygdala, the hippocampus, the thalamus. But this is your switchboard operator, but there's one sense that comes in and affects you and you don't really have any control over. And I don't think a lot of you think about this sense too much. So let's look at the senses right now. What we have is we have sight, sound, sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. So if we were in class, then everybody would be calling it out, but I don't have your feedback here, so let's just go on with it. So the sense is actually your olfactory, your sense of smell. So the information for smell goes straight in. These are your olfactory bulbs. And so it goes straight into the emotional system and it bypasses the thalamus. So the thalamus doesn't really direct the sense of smell. The sense of smell comes in and affects your emotional system right off. So this is something I ask my students. I say, so when can you tell the difference between love and lust? And, you have fun with that, so on and so forth. And then I come back with, probably not until you've been together for about 2 years. And then we go into this whole thing as, what is lust? And the research on this is we have something. So pheromones are chemicals that seem to affect our behavior. And a lot of times we're not conscious of them. So then what I would do if you were a face-to-face classes, I would ask the males in the classes, I would say, okay, how many of you males know what happens to best friends' menstrual cycles? And some of you males in the class, I'm sure you know, some of you don't know, that if you have two best friends, they're likely to menstruate together, have their menstrual period together. If women live together, then they tend to have their menstrual period together. And a lot of people don't understand why this is. And what this is actually the presence of pheromones. So when women are menstruating, they're releasing pheromones into the air. And the pheromones in the air can help regulate the women around them, their pituitary gland, their hormonal cycle. So we don't know why, but some women are stronger pheromonally and other people are weaker pheromonally. And that doesn't have anything to do with your mental weakness, your physical weakness. It just has to do with pheromonal, who's going to be setting the pace for the menstrual periods. So if a woman is really, really weak pheromonally and she hangs out with another woman during the day where she doesn't even consciously know that the other woman is menstruating at all, actually we've had research that's found that some women will actually start spotting just by hanging out in the presence of someone who is very strong pheromonally. They say, okay, what do you guys think? Do you think sex changes everything? And then we get into a big debate about that. And again, usually what we find out is that sex may change everything for more of the females in the relationship. Now, that's not true for all females. But what they found is that women who are exposed to male pheromones have the ability to change a woman's hormonal cycle. Now, the research that they did on this is kind of disgusting. I don't know how much these women were getting paid for this, but maybe it was all in the name of science. So what they did was they took where the women didn't even see the men. They didn't know who the men were. They never saw them, but they were exposed to their pheromones by why every day the men would get there would be a swab, and they would swab their underarm sweat, and then that swab would be used to brush the sweat over top of the woman's lips. So a woman was exposed to the male sweat via a Q-tip, brushing the sweat over her lip. However, by being exposed to the male pheromones, this caused alterations in her hormonal cycle. So they were measuring the hormone levels and so on and so forth. So when we talk about sex as being very powerful, it is very powerful just by, being exposed to one another's pheromones. Then it can cause changes inside of our whole hormonal cycle, which for some women, that's very powerful. A lot of women are very affected by their hormones. But back to this question of what's love versus lust. So what they believe that chemistry is they think that chemistry has to do with pheromones. Lust is like an instantaneous thing. It's this thing where it's just like, wow, I'm very, very sexually attracted to you, and it has nothing to do with so much how much you look like. There's just this powerful chemistry. So ladies, probably you could relate to this, because women have a sense of smell that's about 10 times the amount as men. So women seem to be very powerfully affected by pheromones. And this is what I could say to you, ladies, is have you ever been with a man and his sweat to you actually smells good, or you can't smell his sweat at all? And then there's other men that you're with, and when they sweat, it smells really bad to you. I mean, you're just, oh my goodness, I can't stand it. So the reason why we're attracted to, why we like some people's sweat and we don't like other people's sweat, seems to be related to our immune system. So this is very interesting, very, very. If you've noticed, when people are sick, they tend to put off a bad smell. And then a lot of you will come and complain, and you'll say, I don't like old people's homes and I don't like hospitals because they smell funny. Well, in old people's homes and in hospitals, people tend to be not as healthy as what they were when they were younger. Not all nursing homes, but you understand what I'm saying, as a lot of people are a little sick, dealing with different illnesses. Their health is starting to fail. That's why they're in the nursing home. And then the same thing for hospitals. So what gives off our sense of smell is our immune system, which is the immune system is the system of organs and glands that fights off illness. So that gives off our smell. So have you ever noticed that when you're really in love, then everybody seems to want you, and then when you aren't in love, then it seems like nobody wants you? Have you noticed that? Maybe not. Okay, but anyway, when you are head over heels in love, we tend to be very healthy, very happy. That's why people won't eat, they won't sleep, they can go for hours and hours without sleeping. They have tons and tons of energy, so much energy. It's amazing to me that, I watch teenagers, and they always seem to wrestle a lot when they're first in love, and maybe you're first in love, and you tend to wrestle a lot and hit each other, and you have all this energy to go and do lots of things. So when we're in love, we're actually under a state of like eustress, what they call, instead of distress, eustress. You're like stressed, but you're a very happy form of stress where you have lots of energy. So our immune system tends to be very strong, and so maybe the combination of you being happy and your immune system putting out all this energy that's, all these vibes that are saying, I'm very happy, I'm very healthy, then maybe that's why people get drawn to us. And then when we feel really sad because of a breakup or that we don't have anybody, maybe our immune system kind of gives out more of a negative message. So anyway, I think that let's just review what I went over. We said that the thalamus is the part of the brain that directs all incoming sensory information except for the sense of smell. Oops, sorry, going backwards. The sense of smell. And then I talked to you about that the olfactory bulbs, they take the smell directly to the limbic system, which again, we haven't quite got to the limbic system. That's going to be your emotional system, your amygdala, your hippocampus, and so your sense of smell goes right directly to kind of your survival instincts, your emotional instincts. So those